So we're going to go ahead and get ourselves started and know that others are going to be joining us as we go along. Just a couple of tech notes and to introduce myself, and then I'll be presenting our speakers to you all today. So my name is Lural Ramírez. I'm the head of school here at UWC Thailand, and we are going to be starting a series of webinars. This is the first of many webinars that we'll be holding throughout the year on topics of a wide variety of interest for folks interested in international education. If you're joining us here today, we certainly hope that you will consider joining us in the future as well. Just so that we are clear on where to find the recording after today's session, that will be posted on our website, which Reka, maybe you can drop the link to our website into the chat, please. You'll be able to access the slides from today's presentation and the recording after the event. We'll also be sharing with you opportunities to attend future events as well. So that should help everyone with their note-taking today and their interest. There's also the chat open and available, and we can see there lots of people putting in where they're from. So thank you so much for that. We've got good representation around the region, and that's fantastic to see. We'll also be using the chat for any questions that might come as our speakers are sharing today. So if you have a question at any point in the presentation, go ahead and drop that into the chat, and we'll be taking a question and answer section of the webinar to address any specific questions you might have. So feel free to add questions as we go. All right, I'm going to go ahead and start to present our two speakers for today. We're really grateful to have a couple of really talented individuals to share with you all today. First, I'm going to introduce you to them both, and then they're going to speak in turn about their experiences with boarding. Mr. Lister Hanna is a highly experienced school board member, and he has 34 years of experience heading and leading international independent and state coeducational schools across 5 continents. 15 of those were heading boarding schools. Lister has served on a number of executives and boards, including those of the International Baccalaureate Headmasters Standing Conference, the International Schools Association, the European Council of International Schools, and the International Schools Association of Thailand. Lister is a graduate of the University of Melbourne in History, Politics, and Literature, and Secondary Teachers College, Melbourne. His graduate studies were in educational leadership at Dalhousie University in Canada and Rutgers University in the US. Lister comes to us today having had a special relationship with many of the elements of our campus here at UWC Thailand. As executive chairman of the PIA Management Board for 3 years, from 2009 to 2012, Lister helped Mr. Klaus Hebben establish PIA, seeing the school grow as an IB school to over 200 students. He has a long-standing association with the UWC movement and UWC East Africa, and he has been a UWC Thailand board member since late last year. So welcome, Lister, and thank you for joining us. After you listen to Lister's insightful commentary on boarding, you'll also be hearing from our current residential director here at UWC Thailand, Simone, Sgarbossa. Simone holds an Executive Master of Arts in International Education Leadership and Change from the Education University of Hong Kong. He also has a postgraduate certificate in education from the University of Sunderland and a master's degree in international relations and diplomacy from the University of Trieste. He has also completed a humanistic and transpersonal counseling specialization with the SciCut Counseling School, which is accredited with the Italian Registry of Counseling. Simone has been involved with the UWC movement for over 20 years. He worked at UWC Adriatic, where he taught English and was the CAS coordinator and a house parent. Before joining UWC Thailand, Simone spent 6 years at UWC ISAC Japan, where he taught English and TOK and was the head of the English department and a boarding house parent. His approach to education and to life, in case you're interested, is with enthusiasm and an abundance mindset, aiming to promote his students' self-awareness, intellectual fulfillment, and holistic growth. Simone enjoys building a welcoming and constructive atmosphere in the workplace, while reminding himself that serious work is not always accomplished by being serious. And he'll be sharing some insights into what boarding at UWC Thailand looks like after Mr. Lister Hanna shares with us as well. So without much further ado, Lister, would you like to begin with the benefits of boarding?
Okay, thank you very much, Laurel, for that generous introduction. Despite the challenges, I've always enjoyed working with teenagers, both as a teacher and as a school head. I've also enjoyed as a parent living with teenagers, we had 4 teenagers spread over 21 consecutive years, from 1985 to 2006. I can claim plenty of experience with working with young people, but I'm not too sure that anyone can ever really claim to be an expert. Yes, teenagers can at times be fraught and frustrating. On the other hand, working and living with them can be wonderfully satisfying and rewarding as their young minds engage in exploring their passions and they develop a sense of purpose as they emerge as young adults. At the heart of the boarding experience is first an understanding of the nature of adolescence, of teenagers. Then seeing how boarding can contribute to the blossoming of young people, passing through this challenging phase of their development. This is a turbulent period characterized by unaccustomed bodies and metamorphic intellects, by surges of hormones and increasingly, but not always, connecting brain maturation. It's a time of rapid change, from slow, steady, rather predictable childhood to an overly self-conscious, sensitive teenager. It involves striving to come to terms with, firstly, with their new emerging identity. Who am I, this new person? Establish where the new me belongs socially. And then what are they going to do and become when they're in later adolescence, when they leave school? It's a process of becoming more independent of parents, needing to socialize increasingly with their peers, and trying to fit into a far more complex, complicated world. It's a time when they become their own persons, their self that they will carry into adulthood. It's a time when teenagers will often explore their independence of parents and adult influence, and particularly push the limits of authority, primarily of their parents, but also sometimes of school and other adult world authorities. They can be egocentric, hyper-rational, and argumentative, missing the life experience of adults, and seemingly utterly preoccupied with social rather than academic concerns. Peer relationships can become the main show, and they can be the source of great anxiety. These relationships can also become a key springboard for some of the exploration, experimentation with sexuality, with drugs, and other general risk-taking. They don't always show solid judgment and can sometimes risk making unfortunate decisions that can impact on later life. It's important for parents and for all adults to understand that this is a natural, healthy period of life. I love the quote from a frustrated parent. They just don't have the sense that God gave a billy goat. But then neither did I at their age. Yes, they can be infuriating and puerile one moment, but at another moment, surprisingly delightful and sensible. The teenager needs to be handled with care and love, sometimes tough love. It's critical to stay connected, encourage independence, while holding reasonable and steady expectations. This has always been and always will be a challenge for parents. It's a challenge which becomes that much harder when both parents have careers to cope with. And often special arrangements have to be made for their children's care and oversight. Or their children risk becoming latchkey kids with no supervision or oversight for periods of time. This is where a good boarding school can play a valuable role by providing a safe, secure, healthy and supportive environment, away from the temptations of town and city, consumerism, excessive peer pressure, and in more remote locations, away from the boredom and absence of the stimulation that teenagers need. But more importantly, a good boarding school provides a unique learning community which operates 24/7 around the clock, giving great scope for personal, academic, and social growth. A community which is committed to educating and developing the whole person, and a community which sustains an environment where a young person can develop the confidence to strive to do their very best and develop their full potential, and to actively participate as a contributor to their community. A good boarding school needs to provide a clear framework of routines for studying, exercise, and hygiene. Encourage good practice of timeliness, meeting commitments, and caring for others. Establish consistent and challenging expectations, work habits, and health routines, while accommodating, cooperating, and collaborating with others. A good boarding school provides the care, counseling, and support, and also provides the social, emotional, and personal space to optimize learning. Beyond the classroom and the residential life, teenagers need, to use a Kurt Harnick phrase, to be impelled into experience in the arts, outdoor activities, sporting and adventure pursuits, community service. Good boarding gives them the time and the space to do so. Through all of this, teenagers increasingly learn to think for themselves, to self-manage and be responsible for themselves, and equally important, to be considerate and supportive of others as well. In the process, they should learn critical life skills, how to study productively, helped by their access to teachers and the school, the art of compromise and conflict resolution, exercising good judgment in order to make correct and wise decisions, and especially learning from unwise decisions, adapting to and coping with demanding circumstances, developing resilience to deal with setbacks, developing a commitment to learning and getting along with each other, often establishing lasting friendships. An international community, often representing a microcosm of a global community, presents an even deeper need to understand and reject stereotypes of race and gender and the underlying systemic issues these reflect, to understand and value the host country and other cultures and different cultural customs and practices, ways of thinking, often underlined by religious differences, and even simple differences like that of diet. A hopeful outcome will be to begin to understand and appreciate the dignity of difference and the enrichment brought to the quality of life that living in a community which values diversity, equity, and inclusion, and fundamentally respects relationships. A community where there is real fellowship and fun, as well as achievement and satisfaction. At the heart of all this exposure to rich learning experiences obviously needs to be remarkable teachers. Teachers who not only have the qualifications and experience, but more importantly are caring, enjoy working with young people, and are committed to being accessible to help, counsel, and support them. And committed also to being a mentor and a genuine guide by the side. These teachers also need the capacity within a clear, stable framework of boarding expectations and values to get the right balance in dealing with the students between rights and responsibilities, between trust and accountability, between actions and consequences. This is a balance which will change as the students mature towards full adulthood. And it's a balance that students will hopefully absorb and embed into their own learning. Even more fundamental, a good boarding school will have the structures, the shared expectations and values, and an ethos which will ensure that all boarders feel they are integral members of the whole school community, that they are accepted, supported, and nurtured by all sections of a truly cohesive, inclusive learning community. And this involves day students, teachers, primary and secondary, support staff, parents. And that they can also give back as well to this community. There obviously needs to be a committed drive to cultivate and sustain this unique environment, where a young person can steer a steady course, navigating the vagaries and challenges of being a teenager, where a young person can develop the confidence to strive to do their best and reach their full potential. As another Kurt Hahn phrase states, de plus en plus, to be more than they thought they could be, where the teenager can emerge with a sense of agency and empowerment, well prepared to face life as an adult. This environment provides, I believe, a very real and persuasive choice for parents to consider a good boarding school as a serious option for their teenager, son or daughter. Thanks very much.
Wonderful, Lister. Thank you so much. I could just listen to Lister speak for hours and hours. I always get some snippets that I feel are great takeaways. I sat wondering, what is the sense of a billy goat? I love that. I love that so much. And impelled into experience, my word, as a mother of 3 teenagers, I hope that they are impelled into experience as well. Thank you so much, Lister. And before we transition to Simone, I definitely encourage everyone to please go to the top corner of their image on the screen, the 3 dots, and if you click there, you can rename yourself. As I said, we have a bit of a glitch in the registration. Everyone's coming in as the name of our communications rep. So feel free to rename yourself and we can all be ourselves within our Zoom experience. I would also like to give a warm welcome to Head of School Sonia Rawat, who's joined us from UWC Monster. Really, really pleased to have another UWC head on the call. So thank you, Sonia, for joining us. And so that our attendees know, if you have any questions, Sonia might also be able to respond to what that boarding experience looks like. So thank you for joining us, Sonia. As I had said at the beginning of this webinar, we're now really pleased to give some space to Simone to speak with you. Lister has given an amazing call for what the benefit of a boarding experience could be like. And many of you on this call might be wondering what that is like in a UWC. Simone is here to speak a bit to that today. And as I said, Sonia, feel free to jump in at any point if you have anything to add from the master point of view. Also a reminder to everyone to please drop any questions you might have in the chat. When Simone is done sharing with us, we'll be taking questions from the group. Simone, take it away.
Thank you very much. Well, and thank you for inviting me today. What does boarding life look like at UWC Thailand? And actually, all that Lister talked about resonates with me as I try to picture the daily life of our students from the very beginning, from the time of their arrival. Now, in our boarding house, we have over 40 nationalities and a great diversity of socioeconomic backgrounds, languages, religions. And we have students from grade 9 to grade 12. So the first thing that new students might experience as they come in is a bit of a shock, a bit of a huge change, because they're coming into a totally new world. Now, we as a UWC school and as the whole UWC movement celebrate diversity, as want to turn diversity into a strength. And so diversity is a blessing, is also a challenge. And it's a challenge in the everyday life of the students from the very beginning, but it's also a fantastic opportunity for them. Now, if you look at them as students in their everyday life, they share rooms with their roommates, with other friends from their cohort. And the rooms are also a microcosm and a space where they get a chance to engage with this diversity. They don't do that by themselves, though. it's not just the students left to deal with the differences and the issues. They are supported and accompanied by a very diverse boarding staff team. So if I think about our boarding staff team in terms of nationalities, which is just one of the many indicators, you have South Africa, Zambia, France, India, Italy and Canada, and Thailand. You also have a great variety of talents and interests and strengths that this team brings to the boarding community, from teaching skills to sports and coaching skills, from ESL support skills, listening skills, youth work skill, community building skills, interfaith skills. So all of these are the skills of the team accompanying our students. And in their everyday life, they are asked, for example, if you think about the room example that I just gave you, they are asked to engage with their roommates and develop their own room agreements. So how are we in our room going to decide on the most important things that have to do with our lives, and possibly with the things that are different, with our different tastes, different habits, the different cultures we come from. So from day one, we invite the students to come together with their roommates and discuss how are they going to negotiate their diversity. And of course, they do that with our support, but we leave it to them and we come to the next step in this. So it's about diversity. It's also about a challenge to develop a sense of leadership in their lives. And I'm not talking leadership as in I'm the boss, I'm the head of something. It is the leadership that comes with taking action in situations where we might feel discomfort, but we also see an opportunity. These things happen on a daily basis in a boarding house. They happen in the rooms, but they happen when it's time to wash the dishes, and who's going to wash the dishes. So I can bring an example that came up 2 days ago. There was a big pile of dishes left in the kitchen, and I went out to the students at check-in when we have our community meeting and said, well, these dishes have been left there. Is anyone going to take responsibility and clean those, wash those dishes? And I was met with silence at the very beginning. And then I left it with them. Half an hour later, I was walking through the residence. I hear something from the kitchen, go into the kitchen, and there's one young woman who's there finishing the wash up of the dishes. This is the kind of leadership by action that we encourage in students in general and UWC students in particular, echoing what Lister said earlier. This is there is more in you than you think that Kurt Town was referring to. And this is witnessed in small acts like this, or in bigger endeavors that have to do maybe in pursuing a Duke of Edinburgh, the Duke of Edinburgh award, for example. So going out on an expedition and achieving that outstanding goal. Students, this is not, what we encourage is not just a dynamic where the adults are supporting the students, but we challenge the students to grow and become supporters of each other. I think one of the most powerful experiences that students are going through, and one of the perhaps the skills that they can acquire within a boarding community is that of looking after each other. Older students become buddies and supporters of the younger students, and very often it is our goal to send when a student comes and asks something from us, to redirect it to an older student who can maybe give them the answer. Of course, if the answer is not there, then we'll be there to provide them with that. But the challenge is to make older students role models and leaders really within the community. Of course, it's not just about students supporting students. We also have an internal structure that Lister referred to. We have a structure called family groups, which is a smaller groups within a larger boarding community where an adult is looking after a smaller group of students and meeting up with them on a regular basis and supporting them through the challenges they might experience, or bringing up important conversations or relevant conversations to the situation in boarding at that time. And these family groups go together with we'd call it a flexi program, which means a number of activities of that are offered to the students in order for them to get to know each other and to build community. And this is not just a set programs of life skill development. It's also a place where students can have fun and get to know each other and really interact with each other and with the adults in the community in a way that is different perhaps from what happens in the classroom, even though some of the people they meet in the classroom and outside the classroom are exactly the same. But we wear different hats and take on that role of holistic educators, not just teachers or mentors. It's both things at the same time. And another element that Lister highlighted earlier was the importance of growth, sometimes by allowing students failure with coaching. So teenagers they live at a time in their lives, as Lister pointed out, where it's their duty to make mistakes and learn from them and grow from them, provided that they are in a safe and supportive environment. So coaching is one important element of our lives in the context of our boarding community, which means let students take initiative, support them, and then tell them, go out and do it yourself. And then if the outcome is not exactly what you expected, well, that's the learning space. That's the time when we coach them through that experience in order for them to step up the next time. And hopefully this is a skill that they develop here and they will use throughout their lives, because we all know that we face difficulties and challenges. Sometimes we succeed, sometimes we fail, but the key is to bounce back and be even better than we were before. This is something we try to instill in them during this time of their lives. And of course, we have many opportunities for that. Sometimes these opportunities take the form of restorative justice. I'll give you an example of that. So, of course, in a boarding house, there are rules. And if these rules get broken, there are consequences to those. But consequences are not intended as a punishment. They are intended as a way to help students reflect on what they did and make up for their mistakes. I'll give you a very simple example. During one of my, let's say that my third week here, we caught a couple of students leaving the boarding house after curfew zone where they were not supposed to do that. And they were, of course, invited in for a conversation. They were invited to be honest about what happened and why and what led them to do what they had done. And after that, they were asked to help support the team who locks up the boarding house in the evening to do that for a number of evenings. Now, in this way, and they were happy to do that, and they did it properly, they took responsibility for mending the trust that they had broken on that occasion. Again, small thing, but perhaps a big lesson. And of course, safety is paramount in what we do, and we are always looking at our students not just from the perspective of rule breakers or compliers with the rules. We are looking at them, as also Lister mentioned before, as a whole person. So it's often not just about making sure they do the right thing. It's asking, why did they not do the right thing on this occasion? Let's hear it from you. What's going on? Okay, this is a question that opens up a lot of possibilities. So whoever is working in as a member of the boarding house staff, and I'm not talking just about the restricted boarding house staff, I'm talking about the whole school actually, is someone who is a listener and a coach always. I am also thinking about other opportunities to make the most of our life and of our life as a boarding community in Thailand. So one of the great gifts of the UWC movement in general, and of this school in particular, is that it's located in a country, in a specific context, and there's a deliberate goal to have a relationship with the outside world. So we're not an enclosed castle. We are an open hub that is in weekly, daily relationships with the local communities. So students get an opportunity through their service activities, for example, or also their sports activities, to interact with the local community. I'm just thinking specifically about Thailand. Sometimes we go out and help with beach cleanups. Sometimes we go out and help rescue dogs that were abandoned on the streets. Sometimes we support organizations that are committed to environmental sustainability, and many more things. The goal through this is to give something back, and I would say mostly to learn something from the world around us. So we are trying to instill in our students a sense that they are here to serve and to learn through service and experience, that the change that they as young idealists and we as less young idealists want to see in the world begins first of all within themselves, with their own peace of heart in the relationships they build in the small microcosm of their room and the boarding house, and then within the school, and then out there in the local community. What's around us? What is Thailand? Like, and what can we do here that will be beneficial to the local people, and what can we learn from the local people? So this is one of the most valuable experiences that our students are offered from the boarding environments and through the whole school experience. I can also talk about one more opportunity for students to directly address diversity. So we have an interfaith dialogues activity within the school where students are, where the personal beliefs of students, I'm not talking just about religious beliefs, I'm talking the things that deeply matters to students, have an opportunity to be shared. And through that sharing, there is a chance to build the skill of being in a dialogue. So it's not just about, I'll stay who I am. You will be changed by this experience. That doesn't mean you have to give up on the values that have been passed on to you. But what does those values mean in the context of our world? This is your great chance to learn this when you are 16, 17, 15 here, and then go out there and be, in a way, a few steps ahead of other people who have not had that experience. And again, this is done in a very deliberate way, with the goal of making diversity a strength, and with the commitment to the mission and goals of the UWC movement, which we all share at UWC Thailand and throughout the UWC schools and colleges. Thank you.
Thank you, Simone. Wonderful. And it's so nice to hear those more specific examples of exactly what Lister had shared with us of a general benefit of boarding, and then to hear the examples specific to Thailand. I invite as well, we've got Andrew Tyrone on the call from UWC Mahindra, Sonia from UWC Moster. If either of you would like to share specific experiences on your campuses, I'm sure that would be of great interest as well to our attendees. And we have a few questions coming into the chat as well. Andrew or Sonia, did you want to add anything to the dialogue and conversation on the benefits of boarding before we move to questions?
Thanks, Laura. I could quickly add something. I was in one of our residences last night, and there was a residential community mapping workshop going on during check-in time, and all the points that Simone made, and even Lister, I think like it came through so clearly in that workshop. What is it that students struggle with when they are in a boarding house, in a residence, and what is the learning that they get out of it? It was so clear that all of them, in even the 2 months that they've been here, have reflected on what are the values and what are the behaviors that are required when you live in a shared space and you are a small community together. And that realization and the independence that they get, I think that's such a big learning, that's going to really empower them when they go ahead, and go to university and college and, go to do other things in life. I think this is the biggest part of the learning that is going to stay with them, even more than, the IB or any other academic learning. I really feel this is the real learning that happens, because so many of them shared that at home, they did not need to worry about who's going to get disturbed when I wake up in the morning. in the night, if I am singing loudly or playing music, what's happening to people around me? These are the things that they start, understanding when they live. And I think that's a big part of the residential learning. And I think that in UWC especially, and I'm pretty sure that in UWC Thailand as well, it's the freedom that the students have to make these decisions and then coming together and forming that room agreement on their own, and nobody giving them a list of rules and say, these are the rules that you need to follow. I think that's another amazing aspect, and that comes through really well. And as a parent, I have an elder daughter who was also in a Catholic boarding before she went to UWC for 7 years in a religious convent school, as they're called in India. And it was a very different kind of a residential experience where there were very strict rules, and you have to get up in the morning and you have to make the bed, and if the bed is slightly skewed the way that it is made, then you've had it, your whole day is gone. This time, and you must eat everything on your plate, and you must eat it within this much time, and this is homework time. And in UWC they get so much more freedom, and they have to learn to navigate that freedom, and it can be tough, but there's a lot of support, as I'm sure it is in UWC Thailand as well. And they may make a few mistakes, but it is in all of this exploring and doing things on their own that I think that a great learning happens.
Oh, that's such a great contribution. Thank you, Sonia. And it's true, because as Lister shared about the benefits of boarding, we can be reminded that not all boarding schools are the same, as you say. I think that UWC philosophy within the boarding environment is often quite unique. Andrew, did you want to share anything regarding the experiences at UWC Mahindra?
Yeah. So basically, so I'm the head of science out here at UWC Mahindra. And what I've understood is that the leadership skills which we try and give students over here, and the ability to make certain decisions early on in their life, really makes them empathetic and mindful human beings later on. And I'll give you an example. We were one of the only schools to be open in India, I think, because of the pandemic. But the way the students have, adhered and abided by the rules of wearing masks, wearing lanyards, shown responsibility not only to themselves but to the community. I've seen some students even pulling up their friends. If their mask is pulled down, please wear your mask and don't let the teachers do all the work. I find, just these small things, can really make such a difference to the larger community around. And that's what I want to say, since I'm heavily into science and technology and what jobs are going to look like in the future. I've understood one thing, that 10 years down the line, we don't know what the job market is going to look like. We don't know what subjects are going to be there. But if we prepare our students like we do in the UWCs with certain life skills, they will be ready to, attain greatness or goodness in any community or in any job they further do in their lives. So I wanted to share this. I really enjoyed the workshop, and I thank you all for inviting me for this one. Hope I can attend some more. And it's been nice. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for that contribution. I appreciate it. To get to some of the questions in the chat regarding our member of the community here who's familiar with the development here at UWC Thailand, we're currently revealing a new master plan in the months to come, with the hopes of building our new boarding house to open in August 2023. So that's very exciting. We're looking forward to that. Thank you for the question, and we hope to be able to share progress as we move along. We have folks interested with younger teens. I think especially if you're interested in the UWC movement, it's important to remember that that application process is open starting at age 15. So inquiring into the schools and looking at the different campuses. And again, I'm so grateful for the contributions from UWC Mahindra and UWC Master today, to see that the UWC movement is so broad, right, across 18 different schools and colleges all around the world. It's a really amazing, amazing thing. Lister himself was at the beginnings of what is UWC East Africa. And so yeah, the movement itself just offers a lot of really great opportunities. So if you've got a young teen, you've got some time to look into those different campuses and to have a think about the way that you might want to make that entry point into the UWC experience. Regarding the question of supporting students with body image issues, I can speak perhaps specifically to the way that we work with that here at UWC Thailand. And I believe, yeah, we have our counselor on the call. Len Peters, would you want to jump in and speak a bit to our supports for social emotional needs? I don't know if he's listening and multitasking at the same time. He might be. Simone, would you like to take that question?
Sorry, I am muted. Here I am. So there is communication between the different adults looking after the students, and communication with the students is key in looking after these students. So all of us are points of, let's say, offer an opportunity to the students to be listened, to be heard. So we are watching them, seeing how they are, and asking them questions in case they look down or they look like they have some difficulties. But sometimes we are also ready to hear their we are always ready to hear their concerns if they come to us. So often in casual conversations, a little let's say a little hint would pop up about well, really any issues. They can be insecurities about the body image. It can be. So what we have here is a very close-knit community that would pass on the message, the information about what the students have shared to the right people. So we have counseling skills within the boarding house. We also have social emotional counselors that look after the whole school. And all of us as boarding staff are ready to lend a ear to that. So this is the way that we start a conversation, and then we take it and hear the student out, and then take different steps according to the different situations. So we might we may decide to support the student in-house. We may help the student reach out to the right person outside the school, even if there's a need for that. So it really depends, and it really depends on the situation. And we always look at the individual student, at the individual person before we make any decision. We are aware of the fact that some issues are widespread around the world, and perhaps exacerbated also by the use of social media. So I just give you one example of a way to tackle this as in a systemic way, as opposed to the individual way, which is always there. That was the watching of a documentary, a quite powerful recent documentary that was produced by Netflix about social media and their impact on youth. So that was watched throughout the school in different contexts, and it prompted a number of conversations, and ultimately I think helped some students come out about some of their issues in a very supportive environment, because everyone was on the same page about the importance of these and the need to support them.
Yeah, thank you for that, Simone. And here at UWC Thailand, we have a really comprehensive model when it comes to caring for the needs of children. And I think at each UWC, it can be slightly different, but that same intention and care is there. We're a mindfulness school, so there's the mindfulness side of the work that we do. And then, as Simone has explained, a lot of social emotional support and counseling as well, that just goes along with the support of students. And as I had guessed, Len Peters is with a student. He messaged me privately to say, so the care goes even beyond the workday, as we can see, as Len tries to be with us, and then also there for students. Mobin, did you have a question you would like to ask directly? Or maybe you want me to read the one that's in the
yes,
chat?
yeah,
Okay.
I just
Yes,
wrote the question, but I thought if Simone can answer this question. See, my question, I'm heading actually the boarding of MIT Pune Special Shanti Gurukul, where our so there. My question is that now we are preparing schools in almost after one and a half year. And the time period children have gone through tremendous trauma. I mean, I understand that, okay, they lost their wonderful memories of being in the school and with the same age group. So what special preparations, or maybe what the separate preparations are we doing in order to accommodate the needs of the children? Because see, what I understand that some of these children might be coming from a family where they might have lost their near and dear ones due to the pandemic also. So what emotional support are we doing, or are we preparing towards, which we were not at all prepared before the COVID time period? So maybe this will be a helpful point for me also when I'm preparing to welcome my students after Diwali, after our midterm break now.
Yeah, thank you for that question.
Thank you.
I actually just wrote an article posted in LinkedIn. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you can see it there. And I spoke specifically of this. What an interesting time we're in to be leading educational institutions in the middle of a pandemic. And the shift, as you say, of role and responsibility in response to those ever increasing needs related to well-being. And I mean, as the mother, I have 3 teenagers. I see it in my own children. And then for Simone and Lister and their experience within boarding schools, I mean, it's like having hundreds of children, right, that are under your care. Lister, would you like to share any thoughts on supporting students from a social emotional standpoint, or Simone specifically within the pandemic?
Well, obviously, I'm far removed from day-to-day schooling. So there's not very much I can really contribute, except to see what I see from a school board perspective in happening in schools. And of course, something that I really very much value that UWC Thailand has is the emphasis on social emotional learning and mindfulness and developing that capacity in young people to be able to reflect, to be able to self-regulate, and to strengthen to develop a resilience that is born out of reflection as well, and a lot of care that comes from that surrounds them in terms of the structures of the school.
And I think a lot of schools, if they haven't done so already, might want to be shifting to a model that is more supportive of children's well-being outside of a pandemic, so that they are better prepared for non-pandemic and potential pandemic conditions. One of the first conversations I had with Lister when I joined UWC Thailand was regarding the initial stages of the school prior to becoming a UWC and its commitment to social emotional learning and mindfulness. And it's a good reminder to us all. I'm not sure how the situation is where you are, Movin, but if we haven't already prioritized the well-being of children along with their academic success, then we have a strong reminder with the pandemic that is an important precursor in the way that we approach their learning, so that when we have something so intense that we're responding to, it's not the first time that we've shown them that we care, and that their emotions and their struggles are as equally, if not more important to us than their academic struggles as well.
Exactly.
Simone has led our school through, even just in a short period of time, so many different stages, from online learning and lockdown within the boarding house to now students back to campus. Simone, can you provide us with any insight into how that psychological support and well-being support has been for students as they navigate those different worlds?
Well, I am happy to do that. So one thing that I appreciate so we had to spend a lot of time meeting and understanding how to cope with not only with the pandemic, but with the rules and regulations that come from the country that is hosting us. So how do we put these things together in the context of a boarding community? And one thing that I really like about the approach that we have taken is that it's an approach that leaves fear behind, and we are going to embrace the fact that our life nowadays is a live 3-day pandemic. So of course, this doesn't lessen the importance of safety and prevention, which are always paramount, but we are trying to look at the pandemic as something that we have to live with, and also encourage students not to be on a permanent lockdown, because we have to decide between sometimes mental health and taking a risk, not a reckless risk, but just a bit more of a risk to let them go out there and do that outdoor experience, practice their sports, and get renewal from those experiences. So this has been something I really think has been a shift in the way we approach things, and I think it helped the students quite a lot to grow out of their fear and focus on prevention and safety, as opposed to what's going to happen if. And we had our challenges and we had to deal with them in the day-to-day, but this fundamental approach is about building resilience before, helping students be in touch with their emotions and be able to express them and ask for help, and there's a support network around them, but also knowing that we're going to go out there and do our best to live a new normal life, perhaps. And with that awareness, that awareness is very helpful to maintain and enhance students' mental well-being.
Yeah. And I'm always really proud of our secondary principal, John Field, who I hear over and over again say to staff on a regular basis, don't worry as much about what you're teaching students, worry about them as human beings. How are they doing? Are you taking care with them? To respond to Yulia's question in the chat, here at UWC Thailand, we've got comprehensive counseling model. So we have 2 comprehensive counselors on campus. We're a through school, so we've got nursery through grade 12. And then we also have a well-being lead within the boarding facility as well. And so quite robust support, and then structures that build around that to ensure that there's communication and support coming from different levels within teaching and administration as well. Well, I think we are coming to the end of our time, and respectful of the time of all of our presenters and our attendees today. If there's no further questions, I think we'll close out our webinar, inviting you to please join us for the events that we'll have coming that will be announced on our social media, on LinkedIn, if you follow us there. There's also a beautiful video that's been made by our team on the boarding experience, which we invite you to click on there in the chat and enjoy after the session today. You can find all of our contact information as well in the follow-up that will come from our communications lead. If you ever want to reach out to Lister, to Simone, to myself, to our colleagues who've joined us from other UWC campuses, we're always very happy to speak with families or students interested in a boarding experience, in a UWC experience specifically, always happy to share. So please don't hesitate to reach out and enjoy the video if you stick around to watch it. Save it in your browser if not, and we'll hope to see you at our next event. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you can see here on this last screen, the topics that we have to come for future webinars. You'll see those advertised on our social media, through our LinkedIn account. So we hope that you can definitely join us if you can, and share with anyone you might know who might be interested. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much to Lister, to Simone, and to all of our participants today. We appreciate you, and we hope to see you next time. Thanks so much. Bye.